Superman fans, to your speeding bulletin for the week July 26th to August 1st, 2013. A week in which we learned that Zack Snyder will meet up with Frank Miller. Warner Brothers sent out a preview clip for a new Tales of Metropolis episode, and a new Superman world record was set in the UK. Let's jump in and take a closer look. In movie news, when Zack Snyder announced at Comic-Con that Batman would be included in the sequel to Man of Steel, he had many Superman fans worried when he had actor Harry Lennox read a quote from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. While Snyder did say they weren't adapting Miller's story, the UK's Independent received word that Zack Snyder is planning to meet up with Frank Miller to discuss the new movie in the next few days. A Superman homepage source managed to speak to Zack Snyder yesterday and put to him the concerns of Superman fans, with Snyder remarking, "It's too early for me to discuss the film. However, regardless of how I feel about Superman, ultimately I have to go along with the direction that Warner Brothers thinks is best." While we don't have word yet on an official title for the film, a report from VancityBuzz.com claims that the sequel to Man of Steel will be filmed in Toronto, Canada. The decision to move the sequel's production from Vancouver to Toronto is supposedly due to the fact that film tax credits are much more favourable in Toronto. IO9.com caught up with Henry Cavill during Comic-Con International last month and asked him about the relationship status between Lois Lane and Superman and where he thinks it needs to go moving forward. He said, "I like this relationship. She saves him just as much as he saves her." Stalked by TMZ reporters while on a night out with friends, Ilya Saukind, who was producer on the original Christopher Reeve Superman movies, said that in his opinion Man of Steel was a little too Batman-ish. Grant Morrison also gave his opinion to USA Today, saying, "I kinda liked it and I kinda didn't, to be honest." He added, "What is this weird bloodlust in watching our superheroes kill the villains?" And in light of Superman and Batman coming together in the next movie, the How Should It Have Ended guys have put together another Super Cafe showing Superman and Batman discussing the upcoming movie. Here's a snippet.
What?
We are gonna be in a movie together!
I know. It's gonna be awesome.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think there will be a cafe?
I doubt it.
What's the premise?
Not sure. They're making everyone believe it's a versus movie.
Versus? Like who would win in a fight? That's weird.
Voices from Krypton interviewed Sam Daly about being cast to play the voice of Superman in the new animated movie Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox. Sam, who is the son of longtime Superman voice actor Tim Daly, talks about following in his father's footsteps and reveals how he got the job. Check out the interview at voicesfromkrypton.net. While ComicAlliance.com conducted an interview with Dana Delaney, asking her all about Superman the Animated Series, her thoughts on Lois Lane as a character, and the way women are portrayed in comics. In TV news, in a new episode of the Tales of Metropolis animated shorts, Lois Lane attempts to interview Batman when he comes to Metropolis to assist Superman on a case. Tales of Metropolis will air as part of the DC Nation block, scheduled to start at 10 AM on Saturday, August 3rd on Cartoon Network. Comic books we reviewed this week included Superman number 22, which was reviewed by Adam DeChannel, who said, "Nothing new really happens that pushes the story along," and he gave it a 2 out of 5. Michael J. Petty reviewed Batman Superman number 2, giving it a 4 out of 5, saying, "Fun, exciting, and a good continuation of this arc." Teen Titans number 22 was reviewed by Keith Summerer, who said, "A rather disappointing end to what seemed like a promising story when it began," and he gave it a 3 out of 5 score. Mark Pritchard reviewed Smallville Season 11, Chapter 57, giving it a 4 out of 5, saying, "On the whole, this is a good return from the commercial break." And continuing our reviews of the Trinity War saga, Justice League Dark number 22 was reviewed by Sean Morrissey, who said, "Trinity War wants to be epic, but so far it's popping the stitching on its breeches," and he gave this issue a 3 out of 5. Superman comics available this week from July 31st include Adventures of Superman Chapter 14 digital comic has been available since July 29th. Injustice Gods Among Us Chapter 29 digital comic has been available since July 30th. Adventures of Superman number 3 print edition. Injustice Gods Among Us number 7 print edition. Smallville Season 11 Special number 2 print edition. Superboy number 22. Superman Annual number 2. Smallville Season 11 Chapter 58 digital comic will be available August 2nd. And Showcase presents DC Comics Presents Superman Team-Ups Volume 2 Trade Paperback. Check out these new children's Superman and Super Pets books released this week. Grab the DC Super Pets Character Encyclopedia, now on sale for just $7.16. Or how about the Superman to the Rescue book, yours for just $7.19. These and other great Superman children's books are available from your one-stop Superman shop, the Superman homepage online store at supermanhomepage.com/shop. In other news, episode 103 of Radio KAL, the monthly podcast of the Superman homepage, is now available to listen to. Scotty and I discuss Man of Steel's box office success, the sequel announcement, Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox, Tales of Metropolis, The Adventures of Superboy Season 3 DVD, Superman Unchained, Batman, Superman and Adventures of Superman comic books, Comic-Con International, and much more. Listen to it now at supermanhomepage.com/radio. DC Comics is asking fans to recognise the real heroes in our everyday lives, the people who inspire us to be better people. Your hero might be a friend, family member, a co-worker, or maybe even a stranger. Tell your story by recording a video or uploading one that you already have. Once you've submitted your video, tell your friends about the Superman Real Heroes project and have them vote on your video. Share these stories about everyday heroes around the world and celebrate them by visiting realheroesproject.org. The 2014 Justice League inspired Kia Sorrento has sold at auction for just over $41,000. The limited edition Sorrento, which was on display at July's Comic-Con International, is part of a Kia collaboration with DC Entertainment in association with the We Can Be Heroes campaign. Kia auctioned off the Justice League Sorrento on eBay with a starting bid of $35,000. The auction ended this week with a final bid of $41,075. The UK once again holds the world record for the most people dressed as Superman gathered in the one location. The Kendall Calling event in the Lake District saw 867 people dressed as Superman. The stunt by costume firm Escapade raised £1,000 for the charity Help for Heroes. The previous record was set in early June this year by 566 Sears employees in Chicago. To finish up, Cinépolis, the biggest Cineplex chain in Mexico, has created a fun commercial that Superman fans should enjoy. Check it out.
La espera terminó. Los mejores estrenos ya llegaron a Cinépolis. Disfrútalos desde tu butaca favorita con la mejor definición.
And that's all the Superman news there was for the week July 26th to August 1st. I'm Steve Younis from supermanhomepage.com.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V and thanks for watching. So last week we talked about the announcement made that Batman will appear in some capacity in the new Man of Steel sequel. While I'm still hoping that he will appear as was originally announced, people like Goyer and of course fans and everybody are speculating, Jim Lee speculating that they're going to be doing The Dark Knight Returns in movie form, even though Snyder said directly that they weren't going to be adapting that story, but that was just the best way he could think of to make the announcement and have most of the fans at Comic-Con know what he was talking about. This week I wanted to kind of suggest that should Superman and Batman have a versus match, and like in The Dark Knight Returns, Batman should somehow get the better of Superman, whether it be through the use of an Iron Man type suit with kryptonite, or whether it be in his tights and he just somehow can punch Superman and everything's okay, and he can somehow outmatch him in speed, outmatch him in wits, outmatch him in fighting, outmatch him in strength. and somehow kill the unkillable when you're talking about a human being trying to fight someone with the powers of Kryptonian under the yellow sun, ultimate speed, ultimate strength, invulnerability, measured or not, shouldn't be able to happen. I've complained about this for years, and yeah, maybe I'm sounding like one of those whiny fanboys who doesn't like what they do in comics or whatever, but it doesn't make sense. And you're talking about, I know you're talking about comic books, and I know people say, well, comic books don't make sense. Don't try to make sense out of comic books. It's fiction. They can do whatever they want, and that is true. But for me to buy it, and for many people that I know to buy it, it's got to make some sort of plausible sense within the realm that they've set up. We know that a man can dress as a bat and run around fighting street hoods. We know that a man can dress up with a Kryptonian symbol for hope on his chest and take out an entire battalion of other Kryptonians who have the same powers he does, and then fight their leader one-on-one, their leader who was trained as a highly capable battle figure and has battle training, and the upper hand that Superman of course had in Man of Steel was that he had his powers for much longer than Zod and crew had. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is, doesn't it shred apart the plots of both the Dark Knight trilogy, which assumedly won't be connected since Nolan and Bale don't want to revisit that world. So we're going to get a new Batman. I assume it'll still be Bruce Wayne. I think that people would be up in arms if it wasn't, and I personally would rather it be Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is Batman to me, just like I never want to see a movie where someone else is Spider-Man, Ben Reilly or something like that. I don't want to see a movie where someone else is Batman. And of course, we're in the modern world. We're in the now setting, not in the future as Dark Knight Returns would have been. And we're in a world where Superman doesn't really trust the government, and he hasn't been given reason to, and they don't trust him. So I don't see how we would make the leap from a guy who has told the government straight out, you're not going to control me, you never will, but I'm not your enemy, and you're not going to find where I live. I've just destroyed your $1 million satellite, 5 million or whatever it was. He's not suddenly going to be in the pocket of a Reagan-like president and suddenly just do whatever he says and naively run around, doing small tasks and large tasks for the government when suddenly Batman has to step in and put him back in his place. If someone was going to put him back in his place, I would say that it should never be Batman, but I know it's been done, and I know most times if we added them up, Batman probably has come out on top in the comics, and most of the Batman fans will say, but Scotty, he has ultimate training. He's a strategist. He's smarter than everybody. I still don't buy that he should be smarter than everybody, and I also never have bought the brains against bronze defense, even when you're talking about Lex Luthor in a battle suit fighting Superman, because Superman also has brains. He's an investigative reporter. He has searched out stories. He has solved mysteries. He has found clues. He has super hearing, super smell, super sight. So he should be able to seek out hidden things better than just about anybody. And I understand Batman is the world's greatest detective, and that's okay. And I'd actually like to see a movie where he's doing that, which we haven't yet seen. Most of the time, he's kind of portrayed as a dumb guy who has a suit and can fight. There were some detective things in the Dark Knight trilogy, a couple of things he figured out, but mostly he wandered into situations where people got the better of him because he was naive or stupid, and that's completely against what Batman fans are supposed to think of their character, so I'm not sure why people weren't upset about that. But why do I have General Zod here in the middle? Why did I have him there last week? Well, the point that I put him there because I wanted to talk about how it messes up the entire internal consistency of not only the Dark Knight trilogy, but Man of Steel, which presumably we're now not going to get a sequel or a trilogy, but instead we're going to get a world's finest type of situation where they are either, hopefully, at contention when they first meet, just through, they don't agree with each other, but not that they are going to come to physical blows, because that, I think, again, would be silly. But it looks like we're just going to jump right over any further Man of Steel sequels in order to get to these team-ups. And while I understand it as a business decision, and it makes complete sense, because people wanted to see this for years, people have wanted to see a Justice League movie for years, Marvel has done it now, and Avengers was very successful and also very good. I loved it. I'm sure I'm going to love a Justice League movie, and I would actually love a Batman-Superman movie, a la Public Enemies, as I said last week, just not as billed as the Man of Steel sequel where they share roles, which I also said last week. But in the Dark Knight trilogy, for the most part, the Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, the Joker, Bane, all get the better of Batman. Eventually he wins, oftentimes with a lot of help. But the Joker is a guy that's kind of a clown who uses knives and is, somewhat goofy. Ra's al Ghul is a human who was trained as a ninja, I guess. The Scarecrow has some weird fear dust. And Bane is a big, strong guy. All of them got the better of him, and all of them needed help to defeat, which is fine, except that then we're going to go and say that in The Dark Knight Returns, and possibly in this new Man of Steel movie, Batman's going to get the better of Superman, who, in Man of Steel, was able to take out that entire battalion of Kryptonian soldiers that I was talking about before, and then able to fight their leader head-on in a battle that destroyed many empty buildings in Metropolis. How does a Dark Knight that is a human being dressed up in a suit, even if it's a battle suit, contend with that? How could that even make sense? How can that ever... Also, the same guy who presumably was killed by Bane and who has been beaten by the Joker on numerous occasions. The Joker keeps coming back and doing it over and over again. It just doesn't make sense. It's never made sense, and I guess people just don't want to face that, just like it doesn't make sense that a man's flying around in tights with a super S on his chest. But that's one thing we accept. We get past the idea that, a guy with a magic ring flies around fighting galactic crime, or that Superman, came from another planet and has powers and looks like us, but does great things, or whatever. Those are things that we know, we understand. But if you're going to say in one story, Batman can't get to Robin in time because he's not fast enough and the Joker's going to kill him, then you can't turn around and say he's fast enough to dodge punches or fight Superman hand to hand. And again, we don't know that that's what's going to happen. We've never been told that. It's never been given to us in any way. Actually, it was just said that Batman was going to appear, which again would be fine. Now, I said last week that if he appeared like Nick Fury does at the end of Iron Man, which was the first hint that it was going to be a shared universe, and says that he wants to interest Tony Stark in something called the Avengers Initiative, and then we eventually got to it in 2011 or 10 or whenever that was, that would be fine. Although I did say if Batman comes and says he wants to interest Superman in something called the Justice League Initiative, it would be fine in that I don't mind a small scene where Batman is included just to let us know that he's in the same universe as Man of Steel. However, I also don't really want him to be the one alone that comes up with the whole idea and forms the whole thing. It does make sense from a monetary standpoint, since Bruce Wayne has a lot of money, that he could build something like the Watchtower or Justice League headquarters, wherever it's going to be, and that he could build their monitoring software and their equipment and all that stuff. So it makes sense that whomever came up with the idea would try to include someone like Bruce Wayne. And that's where I've always seen his role in the Justice League, as a planner, as a strategist, as a guy who comes up with some of the super technological ideas or some of the monitoring things, such as OMAC or something like that. Not in the field punching Darkseid in the face. It's funny on a show like Batman Brave and the Bold. It's goofy, but it's not sensical. It doesn't make sense, at least not to me. And I realize that, like me with Superman, I want him to be the leader, the best, the first, the inspiring, all that stuff. I'm sure that people who are bigger fans of Batman than they are of Superman feel the same way. But from a logical standpoint, whether you're a fan of one character or another, it never makes sense that a guy that's a human with some money should ever be able to stand up to a guy who, took down the Kryptonian army and fought General Zod hand to hand and finished him off. That was a prolonged battle, which a lot of these battles with Superman and Batman are also prolonged battles, where in the end, usually Batman is still standing and Superman is somehow down. I realize we had kryptonite, but unless it's a complete surprise and he is not aware of the existence of kryptonite, you shouldn't be able to spring it on Superman, and they do it a lot in the comics because they feel writers who don't want to think about better ideas or who are lazy just say, well, we'll just use kryptonite to get this guy to be able to beat him. And I understand there are characters like Metallo, whom I love, if he's, I'd like to see him in a movie, is powered by kryptonite, but he also has great strength. He's a cyborg, and he can battle him. He has beams and things. And he's sent there usually by a greater force, like Lex Luthor, somebody who does have a lot of money at his disposal and is also very intelligent. But the one argument I always hate is it's brains versus brawn, and in the end, brains will always win. I have seen Superman win many, many times using brains and outthinking his opponents. Somebody like Brainiac, who should be thousands and thousands of times more intelligent than anyone, Superman has outsmarted. So to do one story where he can outsmart someone who's super highly intelligent and then do another story where he's just this goofball who does anything the American government says, even though they're crooked and even though they're wrong, and to have Batman come in and have him go, "Oh, I'm Superman, I'll beat you," and Batman just go, "No, you won't, I'm Batman," and you know, it just doesn't fly with me. We need to have some sort of a consistency, and in my opinion, Superman has never been at heart portrayed as a big dumb ox who is only strong, and shouldn't be portrayed that way. And I also don't think it makes any sense that Batman could have his back broken by just a guy who happens to be beefed up on drugs, but then somehow take down Superman. Or that Superman could take down all those Kryptonians, but then not be able to take down Batman. So I don't mind a team-up movie, and I'm very excited about the direction that the shared universe is going to go in. I think Marvel did a great job, and I'm looking forward to see what DC does with it. But I'm, as you know, I'm against the versus idea. But that'll be all for now. Remember, everyone, tune in next week. Same bat time. Same bat channel.